Hello everyone. I'm assuming by now you have watched the first two videos of chapter 7, that was finding the area under the normal curve and how to work backwards with your z-score table. If you still need to go back and brush up some skills on finding the area under the normal curve, then go ahead and work on these problems from your textbook before you watch this video. This video relies totally on the concepts you had learned in the first video of finding the area under the normal curve. If you think you are ready with it, then let's proceed. On this video, I will be starting back with the x scale, converting from x to z scale, and then showing you how to solve some word problems. So let's go and read problem number 21 on page 366. So go ahead, read that problem and come back. On that problem, it's given to you that the mean diameter for all healthy kids in between the ages of 5 and 15 years is 26.4 millimeters with a standard deviation of 4.2. I wrote it down in terms of sample because that was for a large sample of kids. So that's x bar is the mean, s is the standard deviation. Part A of the problem said, what proportion of healthy kids have left atrial diameters less than 24 millimeters? So I would go and sketch the normal curve. The problem said it's normally distributed. I would mark the mean in the center. I was looking for less than 24, so I have 24 here, and then I was looking for less than 24. So I shade all the region to the left of 24. To write it down as a probability step, we can say probability that x is less than 24. Now my next job would be to convert from x to z scale. So using the z-score formula that we have from chapter 4, which is x minus x bar over s, my z-score would be 24 minus 26.4 divided by 4.2. That gives me negative 0.57. So under your x scale, you would write your z scale. In the same fashion, I would write my next probability step by saying probability that z is less than negative 0.57. Just like I have x scale and z scale, here I have my step in terms of x and in terms of z. After you get this step, now we are ready to go to the z-score table and find out this probability. So here I come to the table. I was looking for negative 0.57. So I will look for negative 0.5 here. And 7 is right up here. If you look up here, then I come down here. I get 0.2843. So that's your probability. Come back here to the problem and write down your answer as 0.2843. Your work is not yet done till you write a final statement. For wording the statement, here is how you are going to write it down. I would say there is a 28.43% chance that for all healthy children between the ages of 5 and 15 years, they have the left atrial diameter less than 24 millimeters. Let's go back and check one more piece here. When I wrote down the first x scale, how did I decide this was my x scale and not z? As soon as you write a value for the mean other than 0, you should know that's not your z scale, that's your x scale, because z scale has a mean of 0. So that was part A. Now let's go and do part B. For part B, the problem said, what's the probability that your atrial diameter is greater than 32? In the same fashion as previous problem, I have converted from x scale to z scale. I would write my probability steps in terms of x and then in terms of z. This time I have a greater than inequality. If you remember from the first video, when we have a greater than inequality, we convert it to less than by doing 1 minus. Now you would go to your table, look for 1.33 under positive z-score table, and you would get your answer as 0.9082. You would subtract that answer from 1 and get your final answer, convert to percent and write a statement. That was part B. Let's do part C. Just like before, this time I have 2 points. I'm looking for what is the chance that for healthy children the left atrial diameter is between 25 and 30. You have two numbers this time to convert to z-score. Remember, for the mean, z-score is always 0. The value that lies to the left of the mean gets a negative z-score, and the one to the right will have a positive z-score. And I have done all that conversion up here, converting from x scale to z scale. We will go and write the probability step in terms of x, then in terms of z. Now this is like the first 5 cases we had done under finding the area under the normal curve, which means I would split it into two probabilities with z less than in both the brackets, and the greater value goes in the first bracket. So here is how it will look like. Probability that z is less than 0.86 minus the probability that z is less than negative 0.33. After this point, pause this video, go and look at these probabilities from the table and then come back. The probabilities from the table are 0.8051 and 0.3707. Subtract them, get your answer, convert to percent, write your statement. These three parts A, B and C were asking you for the proportion or probability. So this is how you would proceed. Let's also go and look at part D. For part D, it said find that value x beyond which we can say only 20% of the kids have a greater left atrial diameter. So I would mark this value x on the right so that beyond that I have 20%. Think about it. If I were to mark this value x on the left, can I possibly say that all this area to the right of that would be 20%? And the answer would be no, because 50% of the area is to one side of the mean. That's why I have marked my x to the right. This problem, part D, is working backwards with your z-table that relies on the second video that we had done. Now, to go to my table, I need the area to the left. If the area to the right is 20%, the area to the left would be 80%. Your z-score corresponding to the mean is 0. Because this value x is to the right of the mean, it will have a positive z-score. So I would go to positive z-scores and try to find the z-score corresponding to this x. So I am back here to positive z-scores. I was looking for a probability of 0.80. So I am not looking in the first row or the top column. I will look inside the table, look for 0.80. I see 0.7995 and 0.8023. Out of these two numbers, 0.7995 is closer to 0.80. So I will trace this value backwards. So when I trace it backwards, I get 0.84. So that's my z-score corresponding to x. So we saw from the table the z-score corresponding to x was 0.84. I would come and write it down here. Now when we are working backwards, if you remember I told you on the previous video, we don't have any probability steps. I would start with my z-score formula, plug in all the values that I have and solve for x. So I have z-score as 0.82, x bar is 26.4, s is 4.2. Plug in all these numbers, we solve for x, and x comes out to be 29.23 millimeters. So I can say 20% of the kids have left atrial diameters greater than 29.23 millimeters. So that was a problem on normal distribution, starting from x scale, going to z scale, and then doing the problem. I would recommend going to your ebook and practicing more problems of this kind. And this completes this video of finding out the area using x scale.